Franchise Show. I hope you're all doing well. And I hope you've had a good week in franchising. I've had a good week in franchising. I've just recently got back from the holiday, so there's been lots of things that I've had to do and get back into all of this. But it's lovely to see you all again. I hope that we have some people here today. Looking forward to hearing your comments. So where do we always start? We always start by explaining what the premise of this show is all about. So the franchise show is, as you can imagine, about franchising. Now that's no surprise, but we delve deep into the subject of franchising. So if you're a franchisee or a franchisor, or if you're an entrepreneur, I always struggle with that word, but if you're any of those things and you're interested in franchising, then this is a show that hopefully will add value to a conversation. We're not necessarily here to answer questions. We're here hopefully to inspire some thought and actually to inspire some questions because I want people to make great decisions in franchising and I want people to love franchising. And by inspiring thought, hopefully we can do that. So each week we take a different topic and we have a lovely guest, and this is no exception today. So the topic today is high performing franchisees. Now that's something, if you're a franchisor or a franchisee, that you certainly aspire to become or to have as part of your network. So it's a great conversation to have. Really looking forward to delving deep into this conversation. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you, and I'm sure most people know, the wonderful Tim Morris. It's fantastic to have you here, Tim.
Thank you, Harvey.
We have had the honor of meeting in person a fair few times.
We have, yeah.
But perhaps I could throw it over to you right now, just to sort of give an opening gambit on high performing franchisees and what that means. I'll have a little scroll down all these comments.
Yeah, no, sure. Well, thanks very much, Harvey. Great to be with you and everybody who's listening in and looking in on the show today. Yeah, I've been involved in franchising for a number of decades now, and a lot of those years have been specifically involved in supporting franchisees around the world. And one of the things that I've been particularly passionate about is understanding the reasonings why we have in virtually every brand those franchisees who tend to push through that ceiling of what the business model is for each franchisor is generally built to be, and they smash through that ceiling, and they tend to be a very special breed of person, people who are real business people in their own right and understand what business building is about. And I've recognized that there is an opportunity for all franchisors to really embrace what top performers do, why they do it, how they do it, what their persona is, and that's basically where I sit is understanding and helping franchisors to embrace the power of top franchisees. They really are a special breed of people within our franchise community.
That's a fantastic introduction. Thank you so much, Tim. We have a lot of people here already today. You've attracted some legends to come and join us today, Tim. You really have.
I can see down the side here.
I know
a lot of franchising legends.
Well, let's recognise some wonderful people that have joined us here today. So first of all, we've got the ever wise Simon Wise, and he loves me saying that. He's very wise. Great to have you here, Simon. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I know you've been a franchisee in the past, so great to hear your thoughts on high performing franchisees. We've got the wonderful Bob is here, and hello to you, Bob. Great to have you here. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. we have the wonderful Penny Hopkinson, sponsor of the show. Get her book. She's a lovely lady, fantastic services. So please reach out to Penny if you want to talk ops manuals. Who else do we have? We've got Julie here. Oh, it's lovely to have you here, Julie. I met you at the franchise exhibition recently. Good evening from the north of east of England. Grey skies today. Well, if it makes you feel any better, it's grey skies down in Hastings as well.
Yeah, and in the East Midlands, Julie. Oh. It's a typical English day. English summer's day, we should say, yeah.
Yes, grey skies all about. Who else do we have? We've got Jesse James. He is president and founder of Outlaw Fit Camp Franchise. And he sounds like a cowboy as well, Jesse James, doesn't he? So my hat is appropriate today. Fantastic to have you here, Jesse. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on what makes a high-performing franchisee and how to get that into your network. So we've got Don Cohen here. It's always an absolute pleasure to have Don here. Don is an inspiration to me. He taught me everything I know about live streaming. So if you like anything that I do, then it's thanks to Don. So reach out to Don because he can teach you how to do this. So
and to wear a hat by the looks, Harvey.
Well, you actually, if people do want to know the origin story of the hat, it does start with Don Cohen. So do ask me about that if you wish. We've got Luis Harris here, and yes, you are still incognito. So I'm glad you put your name here. Can't be here for the whole session, I'm afraid, but always delighted to see you both. We're delighted to see you too, Louise. Great to have you here. We have Natalia. There we go. Well, I thought Natalia would be here, part of the Three Musketeers that are the Franchat podcast. I'm going to promote it because it's fantastic. So great to have you here, Natalia, future guest on the show. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. My goodness, there's so many people here today. It's fantastic. But you know what? This is all about everybody else. So Tim, you're going to have to wait.
Yeah, no. I'm
going to introduce everyone here first, even if it goes on a bit later. Simon is flexing. He's got some sunshine in Hertfordshire. Oh, well, there you go. I'm glad there's some sunshine somewhere. Penny's put, hello, Harvey, Tim, and everyone. Great to be here again this week. Great to have you here. We've got Michael Carr here. Afternoon, Harvey, Tim, and franchise friends. That's great to have you here, Michael. I had the honor of meeting you as well. So fantastic to have you here. Who else we got? We've got Sarah Manley here. Great to have you here, Sarah. Thanks for being here. We've got Paul Sims here. Paul's a good supporter of what I do on a Sunday where I help people that have lost their job. Great to have you here, Paul. Always great to have you here. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. This is genuinely, I'm so honored to be part of this community. It's such a fantastic community of people. And, you know, if I could just spend all day recognizing all of you, then it would be wonderful. And I'm going to just keep going because this is fantastic. We have Jitin here. Jitin has been a guest on the show, and I'm sure he'll be a future guest. Fantastic chap, franchisee, aged just 22. We have Kevin here. Well, there we go. We had to have Kevin. We had Natalia. We've got Tim. And now we've got Kevin. So we have the Three Musketeers. Right, we've got a good question here from Simon. So we're going to come back to that. Well, look at this. Chris Goodchild has said that Tim is a franchise legend. Well, of course he is. I agree with you there.
I'm blushing, Chris.
We've got Johnny Joseph here. Johnny is a franchise auditor. He's been on the show and he is from sunny Los Angeles. They've got all the sun. Send some over to us, Johnny. Sit back from a highly productive franchisee audit in rainy New Jersey. Very good.
Just a quick one there, Harvey. I saw this morning our UK franchise legend, Richard Davis, is just on a plane, I believe, from the Franchise Council of Australia conference. heading back to the UK via Los Angeles. So if you wave up Johnny, you might just be able to see Richard in the skies there.
That's good. Well, I live fairly near Richard, so I've met him for a fair few times. And lastly, let's recognize the wonderful Jason Kaber from SEO Samba, one of our lovely sponsors. It's always fantastic to have you here, Jason. And look at that straight away on the screen. Look at me go. It's fantastic to have you here, Jason. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Wow. I need a drink after all of that. It's fantastic to have you all here. I'm going to go back to a question that Simon put on, if I can find it. There we go. Right. Here we go. Let's get into it. Simon's put, do high-performing franchisees follow the system to the letter or push the boundaries? There you go, Tim. Get your teeth into that one.
Great question, Simon. So my experience over many years is that the vast majority of high-performing franchisees do indeed follow the system just about to the letter. They really do understand that the model has been proven. They don't need to mess around with it. They do what the franchisor has asked them to do at the beginning. They've been able to prove out that the model works. But in terms of pushing the boundaries, yes, they do also do that. But again, my experience is they do it in collaboration with the franchisor. So the relationship is very often strong, very strong between franchisor and franchisee. And very often you'll find, or certainly I've found, that when the boundaries are pushed, they're as I say, they're doing it in collaboration with franchisors, and the boundary pushing becomes pilots for possibly new services or new methods of working, which then will result in the data being collected and then being rolled out to the franchise network if it proves to be successful. But the simple answer is, by far the majority of top performing franchisees do follow the system. It's too much of an effort for them to buck the system. They know the system works. They excel in things like customer care, client care, and maximizing lifetime value of clients, following the marketing strategies to the T, building out teams, and becoming really strong leaders as well in their own right.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's a great question, Simon, because when you're buying into a franchise, you're buying into a proven system, and and there are plenty of people that work well within that and excel within that system. So it's about using the tools correctly and using them well, not putting those tools away and getting out some other tools. You've been given these tools, and if you use them well, then you will excel and you will become a high-performing franchisee. Let's have a look at another question. We got one here from Penny. Penny's put, what role does an outstanding operations manual play in supporting high-performing franchisees? I mean, Penny is an expert on operations. Yeah. How do those two things sit together, Tim?
Well, great minds think alike, Penny, because I suspected that exact question would come up. And again, the interesting thing is the operations manual, and I know you'll agree with me on this, Penny, is the Bible for the business. It has everything in it. And too often franchisees do not refer to the operations manual when they have a question about what to do. My experience is that those franchisees who are the top performing franchisees, they will refer to the operations manual. It's very, very rare that I've had a top performing franchisee put up their hand and say, what do I do in this instance? They get all of that. They know it, or if they don't, they refer to it. And that's where operations manuals, I think, they come into their own, and it would be a game changer if the entire network of every single franchise utilized their operations manual with and for the questions that they have. But yeah, top performers, most definitely they will use that ops manual. The top performers are generally interested in once they've figured out the model which has been handed to them, that's what they've invested in. They are then interested in leveraging that model to its maximum opportunity. And the operations manual is one of those things that they will continually refer to check that they're doing things right. But they don't want to be, the top performers don't want to be bound down or weighed down by questioning the business model. They bought into the business model, they believe it, they work it, and then they work to scale without having the noise of anything which possibly could be done differently.
Absolutely, great answer to that. We've got a question here from Jason Kaber from SEO Samba. And Jason's put, when is the best time of Z's? I like this expression now, Z's and Zors. Makes me sound very cool when I say that. To introduce a franchise advisory council. And where do you host the communication or meetings of? Tim, have you had any experience of these councils and getting people together in that way?
Yeah, again, I'm loving these questions, by the way. These are really great questions.
We have the best audience in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Jason. And it just so happens, only recently I launched an ebook entitled The Franchise Advisory Council for franchisors to download off my website.
Was that blatant self-promotion?
That was blatant promotion. However, it is a serious question. And my answer to that is, as soon as you have your very first franchisee, that should become your franchise advisory council. And you should build up from there as you build the number of franchisees. How many franchisees you have on the FAC depends on the size of the franchise. It also depends on the structure of the franchise. Lots of different things. So I wouldn't like to say a franchise advisory council should be structured like this and managed in this way. But certainly in terms of where the meetings should be held, where they're held is immaterial. Very often they're in-person meetings. They're held at the home office or head office, but they could be held anywhere really. But it's really important that at least one of those meetings a year is in person, and very often I would advise that they be tagged on to when the annual conference is. Take another day out before or after the conference where the Franchise Advisory Council is meeting. But they are so important to the success of a brand. They're not necessarily connected to high performing franchisees. That's a slightly different dynamic, but the Franchise Advisory Council is absolutely key for the development of the brand, strong communications, collaboration, for the franchisor to get a grassroots understanding of what's happening in local marketplaces, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer to that question. And we've got some fantastic questions flying in here. It makes my job really easy. Let's have a little look here at a comment from Simon. Simon's put, how do you measure high performing franchisees? The revenue they generate for the franchisor through royalty payments, or their profitability or of their individual business? Yeah, that's a great question, Simon. What do you make of that one, Tim?
Yeah. So first of all, it most definitely is by revenue. I would certainly be measuring top performing franchisees by their revenue, because that's where a franchisor gains their royalties from. However, and it also means that the franchisee is exploiting the opportunity in the marketplace, really well. The profitability comes with the support that you give to the franchisees, and it's also where peer groups become high-performing peer groups come into their own. Top-performing franchisees really want to work closely together. And they want to share their numbers with one another. They want to question, they want to benchmark, they want to build KPIs that they can use their peers within their peer group to be accountability partners. So part of the, to Simon's question, part of the driver of top performers is to continually make their business more efficient, more profitable, and part of the way of doing that is talking to other top performers. One thing that top performers tend to shy away with is from franchisors asking their top performers to show their middle performers or their lower performers how to do things, so that top performers very often don't want these questions being fed up to them all the time. They're busy making their business a success. They're very often busy scaling, building, whether it be multi-unit or multi-brand. And so they want their peers to help them to become more profitable.
That's interesting answer to that question, actually, because when you mention revenue, that defines what a top performing franchisee is in the eyes of the franchisor. But is things like return on investment and profitability and lifestyle, are they real things that, from the perspective of the franchisee, makes a top performing franchisee? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, franchising in general, and it'd be interesting to see whether anybody on the call would challenge or disagree, or we could have a conversation about it. But franchising in general will look at top line revenue as its first port of call for success.
Of course.
And
Yeah,
of course, return on investment, whether that be exit value, etc., comes from as a direct function of the profitability of the business. And franchisors will have a business model for franchisees to follow in terms of all of the costs and percentages and margins, gross margin, net margin, etc. But as top performers excel, the financial model tends to change, because you've got a full leadership structure within the office. You've got office rentals, bricks and mortar that you've got to pay for if it's not traditionally a QSR, a bricks and mortar business. So many things change within a high performing franchisee's business model, and that's why I said right at the very beginning that this is very often a dynamic where these franchisees have pushed through the ceiling of what the franchisor originally planned for the model to be. So you talk, a franchise model that's designed originally by the founders or the brand owners to be £150,000 or $150,000 per annum. And a franchisee or two have figured out, hang on, we could turn this into a $250,000, $300,000 or pound business, and things then start to change. Margins change, cost bases change.
Sure, absolutely. No, great answer to that. We've got some fantastic questions, and we are going to, I promise, we're going to get to them all. I don't mind if we go over. We're renegades like this. Is that right word? I'm not sure. Anyway, we've got questions from Natalia, from Johnny, from Sarah, from Robert, another one from Johnny, from Jitten, and from Julie coming up. So they are all going to be on the screen. But if you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and we are talking high-performing franchisees with the wonderful Tim Morris. Before we continue, I need to ask you all a favour. I have written a collaborative article, and I'd really appreciate if you could take a quick look at it. How do I do this? There you go. Look, if you could just quickly scan, if everyone can quickly scan that, see what they think of it, like it if they like it, and don't if they don't, but it would help me out. So I'm going to keep that up on the screen for a little bit of time. And we're going to go to another question, and we are going to, let's pick one. Who we're going to pick? In fact, maybe you can pick one. Do you want to pick one? I'm going to go rogue. Do you want to pick a question?
I'd love to answer that question from Jitten, because Jitten is a high-performing franchisee in his own right. So,
okay, we're going to bring it up, and then I'm going to put my QR code back on. Tim, what do you find are the key ingredients and behaviors that a franchisor must possess in order to nurture high-performing franchisees? Good question, Jitten.
What a brilliant question, Jitten, and thanks very much for putting that up there. So one of the challenges, and I just clarify, this is not happen. It doesn't happen across all franchisors, but in general, especially younger franchisors when they start out, they see, understandably, all franchisees are born equal, and as the brand grows, they realize that all franchisees are not born equal, and therefore there has to be different types of support for different types of franchisees. Now, quite often, the top performing franchisees generally find their own way to becoming top performing franchisees, despite any challenges that the brand may have, or in spite of any challenges, they will find a way to becoming successful. I've seen it many times. Now, below the top performing franchisees, you've got a continuous onboarding of new franchisees, which takes a huge amount of support, and then you've got your middle section of franchisees who are always taking up the time of franchisors for one reason or another in terms of support. And your top performers quite often just get left to carry on performing because the franchisor has all his support, their support wrapped up in the generally 90% of the franchisees. And this is where actually nurturing those franchisors is so important to first of all identify them, which is really not that difficult, especially when you're looking at their revenues. And in my experience, and I started this back in around about 2008, 9, 10, identifying those high-performing franchisees and bringing them together, taking them out of the normal geographical support structure that franchises have, and bringing them together in really strong peer group environments. And those peer group environments are generally led by the franchisees themselves. They just want a platform that the franchisor facilitates for them, so that they don't have to learn the brand, they don't have to figure out how to operate the brand or etc. We've talked about the operating manual. They'll go to the ops manual if they have an issue with the operation. they want to get together with their own peers and figure out their scaling aspirations, whether it be their own personal exit strategy, whether it be buying new territories or potentially going multi-brand. Their peers are their support structure. Franchisors need to help them create that environment where they can share numbers, discuss with one another their aspirations, as I mentioned earlier on, develop their own KPIs, etc.
That's a great answer to that question, and we've had a few people that have come in there. Sarah's come in with a similar type of question, which I hope that one answered. We've got some
Well,
amazing
perhaps
questions.
could I just
Yeah,
Sarah's question is also great. What characterizes high performing franchisees, and are there common traits? I think there are some characteristics, Sarah, and without doing a major plug, I have written some articles about the characteristics of high performing franchisees. So it's things like their willingness to go the extra mile in terms of their work ethic. It's their ability to understand the difference between customer experience, customer care, and customer service. Customer care is a huge piece of building a business and maximizing lifetime value of clients. It's their understanding of their financial acumen, understanding management accounts and margins and profitability, and it's also their desire to actually produce those management accounts on a monthly basis, to be curious and hungry about understanding their numbers. And there are other character leadership skills as well is a big one. If they've come from a corporate background, which of course many franchisees do, it's really important to fully understand what their roles were within their corporate environment. Were they strong leaders? So that's some of the characteristics. There are quite a number of others, but quite a lot flow out of those key characteristics.
Oh, fantastic. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and we are talking high performing franchisees today with the wonderful Tim Morris. If you are joining us at 5:48 or any time between 5:15 and 6 o'clock on May 21st, then we're live and you can comment and we'll bring it up on the screen, have a good old chat about it. If you're watching it in the future, then please enjoy and come back live when you can. Let's have a look. We have a comment here. Let's have a look at one from Bob. What's Bob put? Bob's put, have you had any experience where a single or group of top performing Zs helped to coach and counsel lesser performing Zs? Yeah, it's a good question. If you've got that dynamic of high performing franchisees and not as high performing franchisees, do the higher performing ones bring the others up? Or would that stifle the performance of those more successful franchisees? What's your thoughts?
It's a great question, and there can be controversial answers. There are varying views on this. It's quite often the case that franchisors do ask their top performers to coach lower performing franchisees, and I know of some right now that are doing that, and I think it's really, really important that if as a franchisor you are going to use that strategy, that you absolutely measure the results that those top performers are helping to move the dial of the lesser performing franchisees, that there is a direct correlation. But it's even more important that if you're going to do that, that you ensure that the structures are in place that I just described about really strong peer groups, because top performers, their absolute desire is generally to create more success, more wealth, and scale their business. They don't want to stand still. And so I have absolutely been involved in brands where top performers have steadfastly refused to be part of that counseling because they were too busy building their own business. Now that goes against the grain, if you like, of a strong network, collaboration, etc., etc. But I do understand some franchisees who, top performers, who start to give of their time, start to give of their advice, start to coach and counsel, and then be told things like, well, and I've heard this, well, you're lucky you've got a great area, or, oh, that wouldn't work in my area, or I've tried that and it didn't work. And when that starts to happen, the top performing franchisees can stand back from that role of helping lesser performing franchisees. Very difficult one to manage, but if it's done carefully, it can certainly work within brands.
Great question, Bob, and fantastic answer, Tim.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Let's have a look at what one of the Musketeers has come up with here. To what extent do you believe that ongoing training should be included within the ongoing fee rather than being charged in addition to the ongoing fee? Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one. What do you make of that one? Do you think that?
So I think what Natalia's suggesting here is that for the and correct me if I'm wrong, Natalia, or somehow that when you're creating this additional level of support for franchisees, that the question is, should they be charged for it, or should it be included with the ongoing fees? My preference and advice would be to all franchisors is to include the support which you give to top performing franchisees within their ongoing fee, the management service fee or royalties, whichever side of the pond you're on and however you describe it. The reason I say that is quite often top performing franchisees, the biggest complaint that they have is when they're not getting the support which they desire or value, then they start questioning, why am I paying all of these royalties to my franchisor and I'm not getting the value back? Sure, I got the value when I started, but now I'm probably one of the biggest earners for the franchisor, but I'm not getting that value back. And I have heard that so many times. And so the franchisor investing back to the top performing franchisees with the view and the understanding that that support could significantly increase their management service fee or royalties over the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, as the franchisor supports them to scale their business to even greater heights. So it's in the interests of the franchisor to provide that support without souring the relationship by saying, well, we're going to give you the support, but it's going to cost you another $500 a month.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great question to see where that support fits into that, to that structure. Let's have a little look at what I'm conscious of time. We're doing pretty well, but we've got so many great questions today. We need to get to them all. So let's have another look. Let's have a look what Julie's put. Julie's put, has Tim seen franchise league tables effectively used by any franchise systems where the franchisor ranks the network by performance into groups and shares this information with the network Yeah, great question. You know, does knowing how your other franchisees are performing inspire, or does it detract from something? What's your thoughts?
Another great question, Julie, and I think it's really relevant. Yes, I've seen them used often. Have I seen them used effectively? No. Um, they're they were obviously introduced into the sector however many years ago, but my experience is that they don't help to move the needle. They don't inspire people. In fact, for very often for the top performers, the lower performers, and again, I've had this said directly to me, can you just take the top performers off? I don't want to see their numbers anymore because I cannot see how I can get there. In fact, I've I've uh, I've had the experience where you wanting to get people to the whole network to come to a team call or webinar where you're talking about results within the system, and there can be quite a number of franchisees who choose not to come to those calls because they become despondent because they're not being highlighted or spotlighted because they haven't made the highest sales this week, or they're not in the league table, they're not at the top of the league table. So I'm really not a fan of league tables, having seen them in operation, and again, not really being effective in moving that needle.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've been in sales most of my life, and you know, often come up against these things with colleagues and so forth, and it can create a very different dynamic, and it depends what you're looking for from that. But fantastic question, and again, this show is all about raising these questions and thinking about it. And there might not necessarily be a right or wrong answer for any of these, but it's
No,
about inspiring that thought and really thinking about whether these things are going to help or hinder you in your own business. Let's have a look what Jitin's put here. Jitin's put, Tim, in your opinion, do you find that high performing franchisees are typically those who go on to developing multi-units and multi-brands? Mumbos, that word.
that word. Yeah,
Snazzy word that we're all
yeah,
using.
yeah, yeah. The answer to that is a mixture, actually, Jitin, because I'm very wedded to the fact that we should be really getting under the skin of individual franchisees to understand what their why is, what their drive is, what their ultimate aspirations are, which includes their exit strategy. And there are certainly a good number of high performers who will go on to be multi-unit, multi-brand owners. There's no doubt about that, whether that be a geographical territory or brick and mortar operations. But it's not set in stone that they will be those. I mean, a particular brand that I'm thinking about at the moment, one of the high performers who is extremely successful, has been with the brand for probably 8 years. Extremely successful, really top quality performer, one unit. And as far as I know, no aspirations to or intentions of buying any others. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
But of course, if we look at, the opportunities, so the downside is if we don't support these franchisees to achieve their aspirations and to give them the support which they deserve, and they're paying through with their royalties, et cetera, is you run the risk of them saying, well, I'm off when I'm going to put my business up for sale because I'm not enjoying this anymore. And I've seen that happen so often. And what happens then is these businesses very often get sold to lesser performing franchisees, and you've got an unknown quantity coming in, and so revenues tend to decline.
No, you're right. You're right. Just quickly, because I know we've got about 5 minutes or so left for today, and we've still got so many questions. We've got somebody here, and I'm going to pick up on this comment that they've made because I just like it as a comment. Engagement first and foremost characteristics of high performance franchisees. Please let me know who you are. You've made a few comments here. And it would be interesting to know who you are and to recognize you. There's another one, I think, from the same person here. Franchisees need to be measured and managed for success. I've always posted weekly results on a few KPIs for the entire franchise team could view. Yeah, great. You know, if that works for you as a franchisor and it inspires your network, then you know that's fantastic. You know, love it. But yeah, please let us know, because you're making some fantastic comments, and I'd love to recognise who you are. Let's have a quick look at a comment here from Jitin. Jitin's put, the US franchises tend to have a big emphasis on the President's Club. Ooh, that sounds posh, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For high-performing franchisees. What have you found has worked well in other geographies, including the UK, to recognise the top performers and sustain their growth? Do we have the King's Club here, Tim?
I haven't heard of the King's Club, but the President's Club, Jitin's right, it's very popular across the pond, and you know, big corporate companies use them as well. It's used in franchising and in corporates. And in fact, my daughter has just finished attending one with her boyfriend. He's one of the top performers, and they were taken to Buenos Aires for 4 days. So these are the types of things that President's Clubs do, and I have had experience of them. They're a great celebration of success for those top performing franchisees. They're very often a very expensive outing for the franchisor to take the top performers. And you've just got to be careful that the franchisees don't feel that they're just being bought off. And I have seen that happen as well. So again, those celebrations have got to be very carefully managed. And my advice is, if you're going to do them as a celebration of their success, you don't say, well, you know, that's how we recognize top performers. We don't provide the support as well. You've got to have that support structure in place, which is designed specifically for them. And if you want to do the President's Club, do that as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm just very quickly going to recognize the fact that the LinkedIn user that has made some wonderful comments today has identified themselves. So here we go. Oh, it's Tony.
Tony Matteo.
Great to have you here, Tony. Thank you so much for your comments today. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. I am going to bring up a quick one there. Hope you enjoyed my free consultation. I've been posting my nugget of the day. Well, a nugget of the day is a great thing to post.
By the way, if I could just quickly say, I don't disagree with Tony's comment about measuring performance. I think that's really important. The key is by sharing those numbers with the network, is that helping to move the dial for other franchisees by having it as a public display of results. I would certainly agree that tracking, measuring, and creating benchmarks through franchisee dashboards, etc., so that individual franchisees can see how they compare to other franchisees, similar demographics, similar age, similar growth and revenues, etc., etc. That's where I would measure and manage franchisees personally.
Great. Well, look, I could continue talking to you, Tim, for hours and hours, and the community today have been so amazing. It just makes my job so enjoyable and pleasurable, because we've just got some inspiring and thought-provoking questions and conversations that come in. I genuinely write down nothing at the beginning of these things, apart from Tim's name. I can just about remember that, and the conversation truly does come from the people that are here. And it's what makes this special. So I love it, and it gets better every week. So I want to thank everyone for being here. So we are going to start to round up. Before we do that, Tim, I'd like to quickly give you a chance to explain what it is you do now. You've been very generous with your thoughts today. If you could just say what you do now and the best way to get in touch with you, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Thanks, Harvey, and thanks everybody for the questions. It's been a great sort of 45, 50 minutes of having this discussion. Really enjoyed it. You'll probably come as no surprise that I specialize in helping franchisors support their top performing franchisees. It's a passion of mine to help those franchisees extract the maximum value they can out of the brand, and then give some of that value back to the franchisors as well. So that's what I specialize in, helping them create peer groups, etc. You can find me on LinkedIn. Lots of you will know me via LinkedIn. You can find me at the website.
Just stopping you on your website, there is a lovely QR code that's miraculously appeared on the screen. Don't know how that happened. If you scan that one, that will take you directly to Tim's website. So look at that. Look at me go.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And then, of course, you can contact me via email. It's a long email address, tim@franchiseegrowthexperts.com.
Fantastic. Lovely little summary. Well, look, we are there. So first of all,
one final thing, Harvey, did you show your Coffee Republic cup mug again? There you go.
Little wink. I always do a little wink. It's becoming a trademark. Not that I like trademarks or anything like that. Well, look, it's been fantastic. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Tim, for your time today. It's been a pleasure. It's been a long time coming. I know we've been booked in for a while. Hopefully we can do this again. I'm sure we will. But most of all, I'd like to thank our wonderful community, because this show truly is what it is because of the people that we have in this community. And the inspiring conversations we have are because of that community. So I truly want to thank you all for your time today. And I hope that you can join us next week. Next week, look at my old-fashioned diary. Next week, we have Guillermo Quintana. And Guillermo is based in Peru. And we are going to be talking all about franchising in Latin America. So that should be a fascinating conversation. And I have to promote, and I'm on the screen, look at that. Simon's helping me out with that. But I have to promote our wonderful other show that is happening on Thursdays. It's Franchising Brand Stories, hosted by yours truly. And this is where we really get to hear the stories behind the brands. And it really helps people to understand what these brands are all about. And this Thursday, I am so excited, but we are going to be interviewing Pip from the BFA. It's going to be an amazing start to season 2. And what a way to begin to understand that story and that journey of the British Franchise Association and how that came to be and how they're supporting our wonderful industry. So it's a conversation that I'm honored and excited to have. So join us for Franchising Brand Stories, Thursday, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST, and next Tuesday, The Franchise Show, again, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. So until then, my lovely friends, have an amazing week ahead, and cheerio.